Good morning. Welcome to the pre-meeting of the Newark Municipal Council on Tuesday, March 4th. Council President, council members, we are on page 3 of the agenda. Item 5, reports and recommendations of city officers, boards, and commissions.
Any questions from the council? Hearing none, next item.
Ordinances on first reading. 6FA is an ordinance ratifying and authorizing the Department of Recreation, Cultural Affairs, and Senior Services to enter into and execute a lease agreement for the purpose of providing services to Newark senior citizens, including but not limited to seasonal activities, meals, athletics, arts and crafts, and cultural activities in the Central Ward.
Any questions from the council? Hearing none, next item.
Public hearing, second reading, and final passage. 6P SFA is an ordinance granting a 20-year tax abatement to PGH and Associates Urban Renewal LLC for a project to construct a new 5-story mixed-use building with 20 residential rental units consisting of 16 market-rate residential rental units, 4 affordable housing rental units, of which 1 unit shall be restricted to tenants at 40% of area median income. 1 unit shall be restricted to tenants at 60% of AMI, and 2 units shall be restricted to tenants at 80% of AMI in the South Ward.
Any questions from the council? Hearing none, next item.
B is an ordinance amending and authorizing the Third Amendment of the Agreement for the Sale of Land.
Any questions from the council? Next item.
C and D are related to the Office of Homelessness Services. C is repealing the Office of Homelessness from the mayor's office, and D is establishing the office in the Department of Health and Community Wellness.
Questions from the council? Next item.
E is an ordinance providing for the rehabilitation of housing units managed by the Newark Housing Authority and other related expenses in and for the city and appropriating $6 million.
Questions from the council? Next item.
F is an ordinance amending the green infrastructure for the sewer system project and other related expenses and appropriating $800,000.
Questions from the council? Next item.
G is an ordinance amending traffic by designating 7th Avenue West and 2nd Street as a multi-way stop sign intersection in the Central Ward.
Questions? Next item.
Resolutions. 7R1A and B are temporary emergency appropriations. A is for Safe Streets and Roads, and B is for Get Covered New Jersey.
Questions from the council? Hearing none, next item.
C is to provide a resolution of support for Urban Dispensary LLC to operate a cannabis consumption lounge.
Questions? Next item.
7R2A and B are private sale redevelopment. A is to provide new construction of a 2-family dwelling to sell at market rate in the South Ward.
Questions from the council? Councilman, council?
7R.
Okay.
Yep. Also, I want to go back to 7R2B as well.
I couldn't hear you. What you said?
Yep. I want to go back to 7R2B. I wanted to defer 7R2B.
Okay. What about 2A?
2A is good. It's good.
Good.
Fine with it.
7R2A, council as a whole, or would you like to sponsor? Councilman, council?
I'll second it.
Sponsored by Councilman Council, second by Councilman Gonzalez.
Today, we were supposed to have the builder come here so that we can ask some questions of the builder.
Deputy Mayor, is the developer here?
Good morning, council members. Allison Ladd, Director of Economic and Housing Development. This developer has been here in the past, but what I will do is ask him to come tomorrow.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
7R2B, I'm sorry, that was a motion to defer by Councilman Council. That was the one second by Councilman Gonzalez?
Second.
I think that was, and the first 2A is just as a whole, I think, yeah. 7R2C, I'm sorry, I'm doing your job now, go ahead.
7R2C and D are both introducing budgets for improvement districts. C is the 2025 annual budget for Bloomfield Avenue Lower Broadway Business Improvement District. And D is 2025 annual budget for the Mount Prospect Avenue Neighborhood Improvement District Management Corporation.
Any questions from the council?
So I'm glad that we are seeing these budgets in March and not in October or November.
That's right.
So I would ask, I think you already know what's coming up, Deputy Mayor. You know, the other budgets for the other SIDs.
Council President, council members, Allison Ladd, Director of Economic and Housing Development. Yes, these are the first two that have been able to be presented to the municipal council. I do know we have a third that is going through the review and should be here within the next meeting. And that one would be the Ironbound bid. So we have reviewed that one, and you should see that in March.
And the others?
I will check on those, and the reason for that is in light of some of the other work that's being led by our business administrator for the tourism board and for the downtown district. I think those, at a minimum, need more review.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
If I may,
Councilman Gonzalez.
are those going to be combined into one budget?
At this time, Council President, I would have to yield to the BA.
Mr. BA? Councilman Gonzalez had a question.
Good morning, Eric Pennington, Business Administrator. I understand, Councilman Gonzalez, you have a question about whether or not the Convention Bureau budget and the NDD budget are going to
Will be combined.
combined. No, they will not be combined, more likely than not. The NDD will remain as an entity, but and so it will have a budget, but that budget will be managed by the entity that the Newark Alliance will oversee. The Convention Bureau budget will be assumed essentially by Newark Alliance because they will cease to exist.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. BA.
You're welcome.
E is execute a community benefits agreement as a condition of receiving tax credit incentives under the Aspire program towards the construction of a 25-story mixed-use high-rise tower with 333 residential units, 20% of which shall be affordable in the Central Ward. And a public hearing will be held tomorrow at the council meeting.
Deputy Mayor, if you can come up and just explain the community benefits, provide us with the details.
Yes, Council President, council members, Allison Ladd, Director of Economic and Housing Development. This project is the 930 McCarter project that is, as I know you've seen it, it's under construction. It actually has topped off, and that's an exciting part of this project. The reason why you're seeing the community benefits agreement at this time is because about 2 years ago, the council approved the tax incentive along with the RAB for the project. And so that allowed the project to start construction. Thereafter, it applied for Aspire funding through the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. And as part of the EDA Aspire program, a community benefits agreement is required. As you may remember from previous presentations on this, when we have previously done a tax incentive, we have separated out the community benefits agreement. Going forward, you'll see them together, and you'll be able to see that when the Tax Abatement Committee of the council reviews the projects going forward. Specifically to your question, Council President, this project is looking to have 3 main community benefits. The first is $150,000 worth of movie tickets to the Cineplex movie theater. The second is to install landscaping that was not anticipated around the building, and this value is approximately $450,000. And the third is summer kids movies theaters that will be 2 days a week in the months of July and August, both in 2025 and 2026. All in, the total valuation is approximately $650,000. And in closing, I'd say that with regard to the percentage as it relates to the total development cost, it is in the middle of what we've seen for the other CBAs. I can give you the range. Bear with me one second. I believe it's 0.07% to 1.15% have been the ranges for the others that have been approved. Happy to take any additional questions.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry, Council President. One last thing. The attorneys for the developer are present. CC Lassiter is present in chambers. So I did want you to know that as well.
Councilman Gonzalez.
Yes, in terms of the benefit, I thought that the benefit had to be something that was lasting.
Yes.
Tickets for the movies doesn't seem to me like a benefit that is going to last past, let's say, one function of the movies. I believe that we should require that the benefit be one that lasts, something that will benefit the future residents of the city, not just the current residents of the city.
Can I want to also add to that, if I may, Councilman? My question and concern is, what are the basic or the floor for these community benefits? Because they seem to be so different and varying in what they are, and depending on, I guess, what the developer wants to do. Is there a set criteria or baseline that you work from to determine what other than, I guess, the percentage, maybe, what would be what would constitute a community benefit? And do you use discussions in the community meetings to make that determination?
So thanks, Council President and Councilmember Gonzalez for the questions. So we are following the state statute for the Aspire program that is managed again by the Economic Development Administration. Per the law, the amount is up to 5%, but there is no floor. My understanding in looking at other cities is that there are some cities that actually don't require community benefits, but that was a special exception by the state legislator in order for that to make possible. So here in Newark, all projects are required to have community benefits agreements. And so that's the first piece, is that we are following the state law. We have been reviewed by both our outside counsel and our financial advisors. The financial advisors have included a financial memo for the project, as they have for the other projects. The second question that was asked is how are the benefits determined? The benefits are determined through a set of negotiations, no different than how the administration works on other projects. And so it's not a different protocol, it's the same, which is there's a discussion between the developer, the community, and the city representatives, and then we would determine what those benefits are. And with that, of course, that does come to the municipal council for your consideration, and we hold the public hearing.
And just to be clear, so I'll make sure I understood, it's a state statute. Does the state statute require community benefits agreement?
Yes, the
So
state
we're not the
statute
only, outside of
requires.
the exception that you mentioned, every other city or municipality in the state has to, if they're developers applying for Aspire credits, must have a community benefits agreement.
Yes, per the state law, and then especially in Newark, all projects that are submitting for Aspire funding and receives tax credit authorization, not all receive it and not all accept it. They are required to have a community benefits agreement. All community benefits also for your awareness and also for the public's awareness are also reviewed and approved by the New Jersey ADA prior to us bringing them to this municipal council.
Thank you. Councilwoman
Sure.
Scott Roundtree.
Thank you. Again, I think I'd asked this question. Thank you, Council President, Deputy Mayor Ladd. So for the duration, and I think this was a conversation that we had once before when you came before us, that the community is involved. So the community's recommendations are taken to these individuals, and then you all sit together and determine what those benefits are going to be. My question is, in certain projects, I probably would be concerned about whether for 2 years, the community said they wanted free movie tickets. And landscaping should be a requirement if it's their property. Are they just doing the whole area as a community benefit of anyone that needs landscaping? So I'm just trying to ask you that two questions. The community at some point said they wanted movie tickets for 2 years, and the duration of this project, of course, is, and the tax credits to go beyond that, and the landscaping piece. And I'm just talking about this specific project. Are they doing the whole neighborhood, or are they just doing their property, which should be required anyway?
So Council President, to Councilmember Roundtree's question, first, neither property in which the developer is improving is owned by the developer. They're
Okay.
both adjacent properties. One is owned by the city and the other is being improved by the Army Corps of Engineers. Again, this is right on the riverfront of the Passaic River. And so they are not owned by the developer. To your point, Councilmember Roundtree, yes, if it was an improvement that was required through site plan approval, that would not be a community benefit. This is in addition to what they're already doing for the site plan approval. Second, regarding how the benefits are determined, it really is between the city and the developer, and we do, of course, take into account the community's input. I do recall there was a community meeting, I think, at the fall of last year, and so I would just say that, again, it's by law, it's between the developer and the city representatives.
Anything else from the council? Councilman Kelly.
Thank you, Council Pres. I really don't want to beat a dead horse, but when you talk about $150,000 going to a movie theater for movie tickets for 2 years, I guess roughly what? There's 333 units, right? In the property.
Yes, I believe that's the
So,
number.
talking about maybe like 22 tickets of. I just don't understand. Is that the best we could do with 150 grand? And where is it going? Is it like what theater? Is it going to our theater in Newark? Is it?
Yes, City Clerk.
It's just confusing to me. Like $150,000. They seem like we can do something else for the community for 150,000 than the movie tickets.
So again, I'll just share that it's 8,823 tickets if you divide the amount by $17, which is for an adult. So that's just the number of tickets that would be provided. I understand the council's position, but I am letting you know what was agreed upon by the administration and the developer.
Councilman Gonzalez.
Where the tickets are going to be used.
Sure, the owner is the same as the developer.
So he's transferring $150,000
Back to
from
his
one
own
pocket to
business.
the other.
My God, Jesus.
They're two different assets, so I would just caution everyone to think about it as they're owned by different entities. The primary might be the same, but they are two different real estate assets. And so just to be aware, it is not as if that is the same direct ownership for all parties.
Councilwoman Scott Roundtree.
I just, for the record, want to say that I think it's great to expose our community to being able to go to the movies free or at no cost. But when you say community benefit, sitting in a movie theater is entertainment. And yes, some children and some families might not be able to go. But when I hear benefit, I'm thinking about how is it going to benefit the residents that actually live in that area from this development that I have nothing against them investing in their own development. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm trying to make it make sense that they're not only spending $150,000, which is going back into the entity which you just stated, and how does it benefit? I really want for the record to say this one thing. That when we say benefit and we have to vote on these ordinances and resolutions, that the community is watching us. And they're looking for us to speak when maybe what they said was not even acknowledged at some point. And I know we cannot satisfy everybody and we can't do everything everybody wants us to do. But when you say community benefit, I'm looking for something for children and education. I'm looking for something for children with housing. I'm looking for something with mothers that are going through. I'm looking for somebody to invest in programming. That when I hear benefit, long-term, not just going to the movies for 2 years, that's good. Not saying there's nothing wrong with that as a benefit, but benefiting the community, it's not health insurance, it's not clothing for the prom, I just maybe need some help with trying to understand how we determine what a benefit for the community is.
Council
when we're making
President,
these
I'd be
decisions.
happy to provide the law, and it's just following the law.
So the law is they can do whatever they want, and if the community, so if there was a community meeting with 150 people, and 75 of those people, 100 of those people said, this is what we would like because we live here, this is coming here, then it still ends up being the administration and the developer to determine what they're going to do. Yes.
Council President, I'd be happy to provide the law. That is what the administration actually complied with. We do have legal counsel that provided the legal opinion and such that this agreement does comply with the state statute.
So I will say this, Deputy Mayor, please provide that information, and based upon what we've heard today and the information that we receive, I think the council should vote their conscience.
Yeah, Mr. President.
Council.
Yeah, I know. I walked in a little bit late, so I missed some of the conversation. But I do agree with some of the dialogue regarding what seems to be like a difference depending on the project and what the city is able to negotiate as far as a community benefit agreement. I know here we have Aspire tax credits. They have to follow kind of the state guidelines. The one thing I will say about this particular developer is that in other groundbreakings that I've attended, they do make a significant investment in like an apprenticeship program, which in the past has been headed by Bill O'Day, and a lot of Newark residents are able to get access to jobs on the construction side. So just, something I want to put on the record. I know that doesn't necessarily translate into the benefit agreement, but it is definitely something that benefits residents in our community.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Councilman Ramos. Anything else from the council? Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Next item.
7R5A and B are application acceptance of grant funds. A is for the New Jersey State Navigator for 24-25 grant year, and B is to provide medical care, supportive services, and education on sickle cell.
Any questions from the council? Hearing none, next item.
7R6A is a request to be deferred. 7R6B is a pre-litigation settlement for a discussion in executive session.
All right.
7R8A is ceremonial street designation for Mario Garcia, sponsored by Councilman Quintana.
Is there a second? I'll second it.
8B is recognizing commending resolutions, and 8C is expressing profound sorrow and regret.
Any questions? Any addition? Next item.
Communications. 8A through D are municipal court judge reappointments. A is Judge Nieves, B is Judge Nakama, C is Judge Sanks King, and D is Judge Harvis.
Any questions from the council? Hearing none, next item. Next items.
E through P are all reappointments to the Commission on the Status of Women. E is Ms. Hurd, D, Ms. Jones. I'm sorry, E is Ms. Hurd, F is Ms. Jones, G is Reverend Baker, H is Ms. Ajapong. I, Ms. Vinhas. J, Ms. Johnson. K, Ms. Ham. And L, Ms. Johnson Diaz. My apologies. M, Ms. Morton. N, Ms. Kennall. O, Ms. Dismukes. And P, Ms. Haran.
Any questions from the council? Hearing none, next item.
Q is a reappointment to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board, Karina Pereira.
Question? Next item.
Public
Oh,
comment.
that's it. All right.
We are now in the 30-minute public comment portion of this meeting where each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name for the record and address the council. Is there anyone wishing to speak?
Good morning, George Tillman Jr.
Morning.
I provided to the municipal council, if you can just follow me, I provided to you Oprah request that I submitted. I also submitted to you the ordinance 6PSF-C. And I went to page 2 deliberately so you can see on page 2 where it discusses the obligations, the contractor and the vendor, the semi-annual reports, all of the things, the Newark residents, everything in this first portion of this ordinance is also what is in the first portion of my Oprah request. So the language that I used was the same language that came from the ordinance. And if you see the date, June 17th, 2015, my request went in July 1st, 2015, 1 month after this ordinance was written, up to October 9th, 2024, 10 years of information that I requested from the administration with the hiring of Newark residents. All of this information was supposed to be with the Office of Affirmative Action, the City Clerk, Economic Development, Newark Works, and it came back, no response, no records found. Again, Council President, I'm asking you, based off all this information I keep bringing to this municipal council, to have a special hearing or a special conference to address the state of affirmative action, the state of this Newark resident employment policy, and the compliancy of our municipal law. The Affirmative Action Review Council, who is responsible for the monitoring and compliance, these same reports, these quarterly reports, these semi-annual reports, are the reports that we go to these Affirmative Action Review Council to see these reports. Yet the last 2 times that I've gone to these meetings, no reports were ever discussed. No reports were presented. So I'm asking you to bring the Office of Affirmative Action, Newark Works, Economic Development, the City Clerk's Office, everyone that has to do with the implementation of this Newark resident employment policy. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Manera Bomani, Grand Rising Norcas, and Good Riddance Newark Miss Leadership class. I just want to respond on some things that I see floating around on the internet. And so to the Baraka, to Ras Baraka, nobody's buying the Democratic propaganda that you're spewing around here about Trump. Nobody's buying that anymore. Nobody's buying the Democratic propaganda that you're spewing about Trump. You might as well just knock it off. And you talked about a tyrant. He's a tyrant. So did you look yourself in the mirror? since you've been in office? The Democratic Party is doomed. Most of you are absolute failure, corrupt, and the reason why we are living in these conditions. And Trump was right. You are driving your communities in the ground. Just look around. It's under your administration. It's under your party. You won't talk about what Trump did for Garden Spires when he had his Lynn Patton, Miss Senator Beck, who's a Republican. He also gave 100 housing vouchers. He also gave $100 million to the water lead service line replacement. He ain't talking about none of that, huh? But he's a tyrant. Everything this Barack administration done to address the crisis was met with protests from Newark advocates about our conditions. Homelessness, we protest nationwide, and you sprung in and you stood up and did something. We protest the contaminated water, then you sprung up and all money fell from the sky, including the money Trump gave. We protest about the crime. We protest about the poor services and the filthy streets that's still filthy. Democrats. But you want to go around here and talk about the tyrant, huh? Anything illegal, you support. Anything. Anybody that, just like we said, you need to do a federal investigation over code enforcement and get it monitored. And look, boom, more corruption.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker. Seeing none. Closed. Anything from the council before we go into the presentation? Anything from the administration? Mr. B.A.
Good morning, Council President, Council members. Eric Pennington, Business Administrator. There's an adage that I think everybody adopts, that if lies are left unchallenged, they become the truth in the minds of people. And comments came from the public today about the city of Newark receiving $100 million for its lead line replacement. I think the reference was that it came from Donald Trump. That not only is an unmitigated lie with no basis in fact, and I challenge anybody to present any document, any literature that supports that statement. The lead line replacement program here in the city of Newark, which replaced 23,000 lead service lines in 3 years during the pandemic, when it was said it would take between 10 and 15 years, was led by Mayor Ras J. Baraka. There was no cost to the residents of the city of Newark for those lead line replacements. This council introduced legislation that allowed that to go forward. We're extraordinarily proud of what took place. That program did lead to federal funding for other municipalities, for other cities and other states around the country. None of that money came to the great city of Newark. Despite that, the residents of this city did not have to come out of their pocket with one dime to pay for that lead line replacement. There's an adage in the law that says false in one, false in all. And that means that if somebody stands up here and says a lie on one thing, they're probably lying about everything else they say, particularly when it comes forward with zero facts, with zero literature, with zero information to support what is said. Anybody can make up something off the top of their head and say, this is what happened. 1 million people were killed yesterday. Lead line replacement got $100 million with no support at all. So you can listen to what people say and figure out in your own minds, people listening on TV, residents in the chamber here, and figure out if you should believe one word that comes out of one's lying mouth. And if you do, that is up to you. But I am telling you, you look at the data, you look at the literature, you look at the Federal Register and see whether or not there was $1 that came from the federal government to help the citizens of Newark pay for the lead service lines that were replaced by Mayor Baraka. I have nothing further to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. B.A. With that, Madam Clerk, let's go into the presentation. Well,
It's a presentation by the Department of Engineering and Municipal Courts.
Good morning. Kenyatta Store, City of Newark Corporation Council. So as a result of the council making the request, we have put together a comprehensive report that was sent over on Friday. I do recognize that I think one or two of the council people didn't get it till yesterday, and I apologize. I don't know what happened with the email. The report, and it also had an attached presentation as well. We do have representatives from, of course, the courts, UCC code, the prosecutor's office, and of course, the engineering department, which is over code and UCC. I also think it's important to note that some of the regular properties that have come up at the council that have led to court cases, myself on the law side, of course, Corinthia from People's Assembly, and of course, the engineering department. We meet on a bi-weekly basis to track a number of those cases, recognizing that there are separate issues that are going on, which range from elevators and leaks and things of that nature. Some of which we actually, 2 weeks ago, we had one of the orders from the court was that we had to be at the location with their lawyers and their specialists and our specialists in reference to the elevators. I believe that was one of the properties on Chancellor Avenue, and there has to be a follow-up because they didn't have all of the materials necessary. I do recognize that for purposes of the presentation itself that was sent over, I don't know if Council President wants to give the council members an opportunity to ask the questions so that we can just address the specific issues, because I know there was the comprehensive report and the presentation was all sent prior.
so let me say this. I mean, we've had presentations in the past, so if it's the pleasure of the council, I think we have questions that we can just ask. Would that be acceptable? Okay.
Yeah, it's up to you, Mr. Chair. However you want.
I mean, I feel we can just go right into questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Works for me. And like I said, if you know, we have all representatives from all the above, so we can address it specific to the department, and we address it.
Thank you. If you do have, I will say this, if there's a short opening statement of something that the director may want to make, if not, then we'll go right into questions. Okay.
Good morning, Council President, council
Good
members.
morning.
Hi, I'm here as, you know, to represent the Department of Engineering and a collaboration with the Department of Courts and City Courts and Corporate Council. We are thankful for the focus that you're putting into our department and the divisions that enforce the municipal code and the code of construction. We're here to discuss some of the things that we've implemented as well as items that we do still need to work on our divisions. We have many challenges in the past that have lingered for years, and we are doing some work to troubleshoot of some sort and implement both policy and action out and when we go to inspect in the inspection units. So we're here to address your concerns. We're here to go over some of the things that we've done, and we're here to collaborate with you as to how we can better our division, in this case UCC. And how we can work together to make it a success, to bring accountability across the city, and put out the message that the city of Newark is going to be stern when it comes to working undocumented in the fields of construction, renovation, a home or big building, or a small structure. We still have to do it by the law, keeping our citizens safe. We're here with Director Cavaco, Chief Washington, and Mr. George Perdone from the UCC. to respond to your questions. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Director. Questions from the council? Councilman Kelly.
Good evening, Director. How are you?
Good, good.
My question is who is the court liaison?
Right.
Out of our.
The court and I do apologize, Felipe was going to be here. He is home with the flu, unfortunately. The court liaison for the UCC, his name is Felipe Carvalho. He's been working on this assignment since September of 2022, when we recognized that we needed presence in the court to represent the UCC cases a little more, sternly and organized. So that will be Felipe Carvalho, and he works from the UCC.
I mean, I hope he gets well soon. I would have loved to just ask him some questions. I think the problem that I'm facing with a lot of my residents in the West, and I'm sure around the rest of the city, is the court cases getting dismissed and thrown out. And I know that's a judge matter or a legal matter, but I guess what I'm asking is, before it gets to the judge to get thrown out, what processes are we doing to do our due diligence when it comes to making sure that the right inspector's name is on there, or ID number is not one number off and making it seem like it's another court inspector, because a lot of our cases get thrown out for these small technicalities, and then the issue still persists, right? So we go through sending the officer over there, finding them, and then by the time it gets to court, it gets thrown out, and then we still have no, we're not abating the issue really. So, and I believe even in the statistics, it said that we had like 72 active cases, but 73 was thrown out. I mean, it was maybe it was a typo or something, but
Yes, so the way that the court is, thank you, Councilman Kelly, for your question. I do have some numbers to share with you. And the way the court goes, it either they get deposed or dismissed. And I do have, Director Cavaco here to assist me for that part of the question. But I can share with you that in 2023, at the end of 22, when we first started, we brought in a total of 90 cases. And by January of 23, out of those 90 cases, we deposed 10 and dismissed 8 out of the 90 cases. Some of them moved on to continue being pursued in court. In 2024, we had 139, and we deposed 61 and dismissed 7. So it's a moving target when it comes to court, because we generate more and the numbers are going to change as you go. But at this point, the post and dismissed are going to look larger percentage-wise, because we have more cases in court. We're bringing them more in. There are some things that we're doing for the dismiss, and the challenge that we've been sharing, not only with UCC but other code enforcement agencies, is how quickly the ownership changes. So what we implemented toward the end of last year is collaborating with Director Adim's team with the water department to utilize their water records, which reflect a little bit more of ownership when it comes to the properties. And we will continue on a monthly cycle, getting that database to continue serving, because one of the issues that the judges have is, to corroborate that the proper owner was served. That's one of our biggest issues right now. But again, we're already working on the solution with the water department records.
And my last question, and I'll let the rest of the council. So I've witnessed this in my ward. If there's a property that's being illegal build, and we notice, we send our team over there because they're illegal building. Let's say they're adding an addition to the home, and we find out they're adding an addition. We send our officers over there, but the home still winds up being built, and it's still there. So how do we deal with situations? How are we dealing with situations like that from UCC? And let me just clarify again. So there's a home, there's an addition added to another floor, and we send our officers over there, they're put in court, but then the house still goes up with the addition that was supposed to be illegal. Like, how do we deal with that? We don't tear it down, right? Like, how do we make it, be up to code?
Okay, so typically our, in the UCC, and I have, Mr. Perdon that, can assist me to the technical part of it. Typically, we go out, and if we do find evidence of undocumented construction, we place a start work order, and we post the property, and we stop all construction activity. Then we bring it to court, and per DCA rules, we have to get them to be compliance with pulling out a permit, so that the work they're trying to perform is reviewed by the subcodes in the city, so that if they do continue with the construction, it is evaluated by the construction officials to make sure that it's doing under the law. We bring them in, they seek their permit, and then we continue to legalize what they're doing out there. That's what it typically happen, and I have, George, if you want to elaborate.
Yeah, I would love to hear his elaboration, because when we say it's illegal, we have the code come out there, it's illegal. How is the structure still there later and occupied by residents once we said it was illegal?
Oh, yeah, my name is George Purdon. Good
doing,
morning,
George?
council members, council president, George Purdon, UCC, assistant construction official, fire subcode official. In answer to your question is, once we find out there's undocumented work, no matter what it is, we'll go out there, we visit the site, we find out what's going on. Now, we will issue a violation with a stop work order, and then they have a compliance date that they either come through with, they'll have to come through with architectural drawings, or all permits submitted by licensed contractors will all have to be submitted. And this will all be done as per UCC. Nothing less, nothing more. I'd say, well, once they come into compliance, the building is now being built according to code. It will be safe, and they could do what they want there. That will not, they still may have to answer to the violation. They still may have to pay a fine if they don't if it takes them longer than the compliance date set forth on the violation. You still have to follow UCC regulations, and that's what we have to do. We are state regulated.
Can I jump in? I'm sorry, the question. So if it's not built to the UCC regulations and it's occupied, what is the next step that?
If they
your
do
office does?
occupy, if they do occupy.
If it's
without-
occupied, yes.
If they do occupy, the area conversion, the area where the work was being done, will have to be vacated. It'll be an unsafe structure. It could be considered an imminent hazard, in which case the occupants, whether it's the owner, whether it's renters, they will have to be relocated on the cost of the ownership.
And has that happened recently?
We've had it happen on quite a few occasions.
On a few occasions?
Yes, and we did issue violations. We did have people relocated, and we handled it accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Scott Roundtree.
Thank you, Council President. So two things. While we're talking about UCC and illegal conversions, we have residents that live in areas where these illegal conversions are going on. They've been longstanding residents. And I'll probably send you a follow-up on the emails, because this one individual, and I can probably say it for the record, Howard Edwards has sent a numerous amount of emails, and he doesn't have a problem with me saying this on record, in reference to a house being built next to him and I know after certain houses being built, they don't have to notify, they don't have to put up certain things. That's what they're saying. I went down to UCC, they said that they didn't have permits, but now they have them, so nothing can be done. But that doesn't do anything for the resident that somebody's been doing something illegal prior to. I know there's a source of fining these individuals for doing that, but after they're fined, and that's my question is, there is a process for fining them for illegal conversions, is that correct?
Yeah, there is. If we issue a violation, there
Or
can
once
be,
I'm sorry.
there can be
Go
a
ahead.
monetary fine, yes.
Now, if they come down and do the paperwork, do they get a pass and don't pay the fine because now they've gone on and filed the proper paperwork?
It depends upon the length of the compliance. If they do not comply by, say, we give them a 2-week compliance date, If they do not come in within that 2 weeks, yes, they can be fined, and we will follow up on
But you
it.
can also dismiss, you also abate fines.
Yes, we can.
I know, and we also negotiate the amounts on these fines, don't we?
There's a possibility on that. We have to be logical and sense, and, we have to work with common sense on a lot of these fines or violations. Some of the fines and violations, if they accumulate, they're for hundreds of thousands of
Exactly.
dollars. But I'll address something in a little bit differently, but you got to look at it also is like some of the fines in house or the site may be worth a third of the violations. The way we look at it is we will probably still issue a monetary fine, but it won't be to the length and breadth of the accumulated fine. You'd rather not have people walk away
Then they should
Leave-
do what they're supposed to do so that
and
they.
leave the place vacant, and you
Right.
lose the ratables,
Right.
you lose the taxes. If we work, as I said, we have to be logical. We have to work with common sense. So we can get these people in there and still have taxes being collected on a yearly basis, as opposed to having something that will be vacant and your city's collecting no taxes.
Let's not talk about taxes, because that's another department, and I'm sure
Okay,
they can
agreed.
give us a report
Agreed.
on people not even paying taxes on stuff they're building yet, and that's a whole nother conversation. So we don't want to talk about taxes. We want to talk about the revenue that we lose and how we negotiate because people are not in compliance, and then we sit back and say, oh, well, they didn't do what they were supposed to do. They supposed to give us 150, but we only want to charge them 2,000. So the city's losing revenue, which now leads us to have to not be able to pay the people that go do the work, which leads us to now have a conversation about how outside people to do the job because we're not collecting revenue that's entitled to us. If the developers do what they're supposed to do, and we understand that there are some situations where there might be some issues and some problems and some funding, but at the end of the day, we have to hold these people accountable that come into our city, whether it's a one-family, two-family, or 25-story building, to do what they're supposed to do. Because at the end of the day, we end up carrying the brunt of the burden, cannot pay people, and we say, well, we're going to negotiate because it makes sense, because we understand, and we don't want you to walk away.
Okay.
That's the first question. Let me let you do the UCC, then I'll move on.
Okay, all right. There's a bit of disconnect in there where the funds are supposed to end up in.
Right.
The idea behind the monetary fines of a violation is,
to run your
as per
department.
UCC,
Mhm.
state regulations, is to bring about compliance.
Right.
All funds generated through UCC is supposed to remain in UCC.
Oh, I understand
It doesn't
that.
go into the city, it's not supposed to go to the general fund. It's used to run the UCC department. And the funds, where we have an egregious misuse of funds, is to be not properly staffed. And that's where we are now.
So here again, which is why I'm saying, I'm not talking about city funds, I'm not talking about taxes, I'm not talking about any of that, I'm talking about the department that brings in that funding. And I'm gonna just stop right there, but I know where the money stays, I know where it goes. And while we're having conversations, you wanna answer, you wanna come, Mr. CC? Okay.
So recognizing that I can see the direction that some of this dialogue is going, I
Yes, sir.
probably think that as far as the funds, as far as this opinion on if we're understaffed or not, I'm sure the BA can sit down with the director in reference to addressing that issue.
Yes, sir.
I don't think that's something that should be hashed out here because
right.
we won't be able to address it here.
Thank you so much. All I was asking was about the fines, what are we doing, how we're negotiating in UCC, and how that, for all the other stuff I didn't ask about. And that's what I'm saying, it should be a part of this conversation. The next thing is, and I'm gonna gather that this is, since we have the courts here and since the director is here, this is really not about UCC, and I'm gonna continue to say it on record while I have you all here, is how we abate problems. I understand fines are paid, Director, no, and right, both of you have good morning. I understand that fines are paid based on how landlords do what they do once they have their own property. The Corporation Council helped me find out some information this morning, but the information was not to my satisfaction because, so we give somebody a $2,000 fine and the people are still living in squalor because the person did not fix the problem and we dismiss it in court. So we dismiss, just help me understand the process for the record. Someone goes to court, a landlord, they have a bunch of violations, we fine them, and then it's dismissed? I mean, is that the process?
Good morning, Councilman.
Good morning.
Scott Roundtree. Jessica Cavaco, Director for Municipal Court. So just a little point of clarification. If there is a fine assessed, they go to court, a fine is assessed, that is considered a guilty plea.
Right.
So that is not considered a dismissal. That's considered a resolution.
So then the next question is for Director. After they pay the fine, how do we go back and address the problem that was never taken care of for the past, it's like, say I'm dealing with a constituent for 9 months, and every 3 months there's something new. And this constituent just called me last week and said they went to court and it was dismissed, and sent me pictures of the problem still existing in the property. So some of this stuff doesn't get to you guys, but it sure follows us on the third floor.
So, I mean,
So, I'm sorry.
just to clarify, Councilwoman Scott Roundtree, the question that you have is what happens after
After
they
that.
pay a fine
Yes.
and the property still hasn't been properly abated?
Abated, absolutely. What's the
I'm gonna say this real quick. To me, it almost seems like it's better to ask forgiveness than permission in this realm.
Don't get me started.
But go ahead.
Good morning again. Thank you, Councilwoman Roundtree. Appreciate your question. So one of the fishes that we find is the going back and re-inspecting. So that's something that we're working on in the future, because as we have schedules to go to initial inspections or to go check a complaint and we activate and we go out there, we bring them to court. After the dismissal, we're working on ways to send them back. Right, to your point, because if we don't have eyes on it and bring him back and say, show the judge, this is what transpired, we went back again and the issue remains. So that's something that, part of the things that we want to correct is having a cycle of re-inspections. The issue that we have that we talked about before is our staff, right? So we're trying to find more inspectors to have them not just in the loop of going out to inspect on a scheduled regular basis, but we want to have some, what do you call, floaters to say, you know what, this just came from court, this was, just take a look again.
For the record, we're talking about code enforcement inspectors?
No, I'm talking about the UCC.
UCC inspectors.
Yes, ma'am.
So those are two different things, right, Council President? UCC and code enforcement.
UCC.
So I wasn't talking about the UCC inspectors. I was just talking about the situation with the court and the process. So does the court notify, because the code enforcement officer normally is in court, so they're aware that this process, what the process is when the owner is or is not there. So is it not the code enforcement officer that's there? I'm just asking, once they find out that this fine has been paid, to go back and see, because paying a fine doesn't mean the problem was fixed. So like when you say we determine when we're going back, right then the code enforcement is aware. Shouldn't it not be, I'm just asking, they don't schedule right then to do a re-inspection?
Well, when it's a code enforcement case, we have a little more flexibility because we have more officers, so we can send them right away. We could even have somebody go while the court case is active. With UCC, it's a little more trivial because we have less staff. So we work with the abatement, and if the courts do dismiss it, that's where we have the gap, right? We have to kind of be a little more proactive to say why it was dismissed, and even if it was dismissed for whatever reason, we have to send somebody out there. So in the near future, we're working, because we're trying to staff, we're trying to bring more people to the UCC. We will have the availability of staff to go out there to follow up. Because to your point, if you don't keep going back and they just pay the fines, it's just going to continue this way, and it's not going to be corrected.
I just don't think they think we're serious after they pay the fine, but we're good. I got the process, and to be honest with you, like, we have to err on the side of the constituency and work with the administration to make sure our constituents okay. So it's got to be some balance there. And right now it's like this because the constituents are calling us and sending us pictures, which I forwarded this time to Kenyatta because it was, Corporation Counsel, because it was a legal matter. And when people come and they can't get out their back door because garbage is up to the top and the people come and pay a fine, but they still can't get out their back door, that is something that seems kind of emergent to me, because that could lead to a fire. When there's a building over on Camden Street that's had 4 fires, at 123 Camden, 123, right next to the church, they've been over there, they boarded it up. I mean, we got to figure out a way to fix some of this stuff, because some of it is actually being brought on. We just need to just fix it and address it. So I'm going to send you that address as well, because they've been trying for the longest to get this building down. It's a little bitty raggedy shack that people keep going in next to the church. The church is worried about being burnt down because three to 4 fires have already taken place there. So these are just things that really trouble us, or me for sure, because I can only talk about what comes to me, but I know that we all get complaints. And so I just want and pray that our process becomes just a little bit tighter, because we surely got a whole lot of code enforcement officers. I don't know about UCC, and I know that you're working on that, but we just need to be a little bit more focused on these people that are paying fines, and then they still not doing what they need to. And it's not the LLC boys, because everybody want to say it's them. We got some private homeowners that don't live here that are doing this to our residents. So thank you very much, Director. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Councilwoman.
Councilwoman Scott. I was going to say Councilman Council, but we'll go to Councilman Gonzalez first. Your mic is off.
It's mostly for the court. It is say normally when a case is heard in court, the judge usually requires that the violation had been abated before the fine is imposed. Normally, before the judge disposes of the case, someone has to tell the judge that the deficiency or the whatever was wrong had been abated. Is that the case?
No.
Good morning, Councilman Gonzalez. Thank you for the question. Again, Jessica Cavaco, Municipal Court Director. So to answer your question, it can be twofold. I think with code enforcement, you see a little bit more of abatement. With UCC, I think their focus is on compliance. So if we're going through the process of compliance and they've met a point where they deem at their discretion is good enough within the process, that recommendation would come from that office then to the prosecutor.
Okay, so let's say on the UCC side, let's say abatement is not as important as it is on the code enforcement side, or is vice versa?
Not necessarily, not for, I don't want to say that it is not important, because it is important. I think when they're viewing their caseload, they want to make sure that compliance is also a part of that. So if they've gotten further in the compliance realm of what their steps need to be, they can make that recommendation to the judge.
That's the problem.
Thank you.
That's the problem.
Thank you, Councilman Council.
Yeah, thanks, Council President. Want to, thank everybody for putting this together. I don't want to conflate the difference between code enforcement responsibilities and why we're here today, specifically for UCC, Unified Construction Code, that does have a responsibility of securing revenue for the city. As, Mr. Perdurn, so put it, that it's not his function to raise money for this city, and that that money that is raised doesn't go to the general fund, but it goes back to UCC. And if we have a small amount of employees here, then if we're raising millions, which should be billions of dollars, then we should have a functioning and working UCC department. And I had an opportunity to look over, some of the information here. On page 1, you talked about waived fees. Like, so what was the total fees waived? Who approves these fees? And which projects were they that were waived? This is for UCC, not the courts. I'll come back with the court to talk about the miscommunication with the courts. And when the fees are waived, are the council aware of the fees that are waived by any of these individuals?
Good morning, Councilman Council. Thank you for your question. I just want to clarify before I move on to the fees comment and concern. For when
Now,
it
can
comes
you
to,
tell me how the total fees that were waived? I want to know the total fees that were waived.
so this sample that you have in front of you in 2023, 1.6 million of fees were waived. And I just want to, and then in 2024, 2.7. I just want to clarify that this includes over
You said
calculation.
1 you said 1.3.
1.6 in 2023 and 2.7 in 2024.
Right.
And
And if you
what
add both of those together, how much money is that was waived on behalf of the city that could have went into the coffers of the city?
3.7, yet I do have to clarify, the way the fees are calculated based on volume, but it's not a final calculation until the project moves forward to compliance. So it has to be recalculated, and there is a like almost a balance sheet in each project. At the end of the day, if something, a permit was $1 million, and after the whole calculation and the build out is completed, if it came out to 700 instead, we have to reimburse the 300. So it's not necessarily revenue when it comes to these fees, is how much the
When you're
developers are
waiving
supposed to
fees,
pay.
you are waiving revenue. There is revenue that attached to fees that were waived. Those fees are a cost that are supposed to be paid by an entity to secure a permit to do a specific project, correct?
Their estimate, yes,
Right.
they're a cost estimate to the cost value.
So let's say
of
our cost estimate was 4.3 million in the last 2 years of fees that we waived, right? That would equate to the amount of dollars that could have been held by the city of Newark. That's correct.
Not exactly correct.
So if your number was 3.3, mine is 4.3, there's still a number. There's a number.
Correct.
Correct. And that's the point. There's a number. In that number, right, that number is not hundreds of thousands of dollars. That number is millions. Correct.
Yes, based on the
Right.
volume of construction.
Okay. So on page 2, you talked about the UCC violations that was collected, right? But the chart that you gave me, it only shows the total collected fines. I asked for the total open violations versus the information that was collected, what we had there, and how we moved in that amount. Do we know the total?
I
Or
do.
does Mr. Perdone, does he know that number?
We do have the numbers, Councilman.
Can we have that number?
Yes, give me a moment. And again, this is before we negotiate per DCA ruling. Do you want 2023, 24, or 25?
We could go from 2023, I mean, because if we looked at from 22 all the way up into current, we left almost $1 billion on the table in collecting fines and fees. I believe this year we only collected $100,000 in fines and penalties, and in a document that you showed, and we were kind of excited about that, but I wasn't, because it shows the disconnect that we have with the courts in order to abate many of these things. And as Mr. Berdone stated, that he is responsible for negotiating deals. Now, how is he responsible for negotiating deals if there is someone that is fined? And some of these fines are $500 to $1,000 a day that individuals don't pay. They get to court, and the fine now ends up to be 20,000 or 15,000, and someone is negotiating a fee down to 2,000 or $1,500 because they believe it's in the best interest of the project, when the person that is completing the project already showed their disrespect by working without permits.
So let me just jump in really quick. I think it's important to note that when you say the courts or negotiation, we're talking about two different words.
We separated them,
No,
right?
when I'm-
Because
I'm talking about on this side that you're talking about right now.
Correct.
This doesn't come to the municipal court.
No, that doesn't go to the
At
municipal
all.
court.
This doesn't involve the municipal.
Those are
process.
separate things, Corporation Counsel.
So I just want to make sure
There
the
is
council was clear about
There
that.
is one that Mr. Perdone specifically said on record that he negotiates for the benefit of the project. He specifically said that he negotiates this for the benefit of the project. Now, I'm not sure why he's the only person negotiating things for the benefit of the project and the business administrator is not involved when there could be a possible developer that owes us $20,000 or $30,000 for failure to follow the work procedures or the construction procedures. And then there is something that is negotiated that may not be in the best interest of the city. Now, how many of those deals have been negotiated currently? Do we have a number?
They're not ready.
Again, what was said before wasn't for the interest of the project. We take it as a whole. When the violations when we come up with a number, I get the information from inspectors, from the subcodes. We sit down, we talk about it. If there was a case for compliance, if there was disrespect to the inspectors, that's all taken into account. It's not just for the benefit of the project. Again, and the monies that you're talking about, the idea, again, is behind the fines is to bring about compliance. State regulations state that it's not meant to be a revenue generating fee for
So it's not your
UCC.
job to generate revenue for the city. I just want you to say yes or no. Is it your job to generate revenue for the city? Yes or no?
Councilman, I understand what you're saying. Basically,
Corporation Counsel, he's already answered that question.
I'm clear. I'm
And
clear.
so you're coming up, but
listen,
he answered that question.
I see the cross-examination already. What I'm saying
That's
to
why
you
we're here.
is, I recognize that what he said earlier is not his job to generate money for the city. However, he also said that the money that comes through this process is supposed to benefit this department, which needs more staffing. So as a
The
result,
department is part of the city, correct?
I'm 100% clear.
And so collecting the revenue for the city helps to benefit the city,
I'm 100%
even if it
clear.
helps to strengthen the department. And you feel like it doesn't, if part or parcel of it does not go to the general fund, it still helps to develop and build an equitable UCC department in the city.
You're
So
100%.
even if we sign all violations and all are responsible to collect them, is it 1 million or 1 billion in open violations? Because we had some documentations at one point that we had that. I believe that's an important question for my council colleagues because it can change what happens with the city tremendously. If we had people negotiating over the fact that they owed us $1 million or close to $1 billion, and if we have not gone back to look at many of these violations, which we have not, because I can give you 188 Shear Avenue, 12-18 Randolph, and numerous of addresses that we have not gone back and examined that have been illegally converted with no resolve. Even you spoke about 130 Chancellor Avenue that still does not have an operable elevator, but every day, based on the law, every day that these individuals stay in violation, there is a dollar amount attached to that violation. And Mr. Perdone indicated that he negotiates that.
So what I would say is this, I'll make the recommendation to the council right now that I'm sure the engineering department will work with the BA's office to address this process that's being used of negotiation and make sure that the folks that are involved in it do a assessment and explain to us why they go left. And I'm sure we will have some recommendations on how we make this process better.
I will say, I don't think it's a laughing matter,
At all.
and people behind you are laughing.
Yes.
So I'm really feel disrespected at that right now. I mean, there's no chuckle, there's no nothing. This is something very serious that we feel with the city, and it's an issue. And to sit back there and laugh and smirk to me is a problem. It's a big problem.
Council President.
Let me council finish this.
Yeah, so currently our construction official is who?
Tony Nakpal,
Right. And our building subcode person is who?
Bruno Silva,
Okay. Fire subcode person?
myself.
And you're the fire subcode person,
Yes, I am.
but you're also filling in and doing the work that Mr. Nakpal left behind. Is that correct?
Right, I'm the assistant construction official.
Right, so how can you efficiently run the department when you're reviewing all of the plans, having meetings and doing all of these different things and negotiating dollars on behalf of the city?
Doing the best I can, and I'm doing everything according to the code, to the regulations, as per UCC. My apologies to Council President. The laughter back there had nothing to do with what was going on. But we're addressing everything as per code, as per UCC regulations, as everybody knows, we're state licensed.
So why aren't fines being collected?
Fines are being collected. I was in touch with DCA this morning about the amount of fines that can be, is there a percentage involved that we're supposed to take out of a certain number? He said, no, there's 0%. Everything is worked out according to compliance. There can be abated. They can be fined.
I love the
There can be
fact
an
that you keep
in-between.
using the word that everything can be worked out as per compliance. Who works that out?
We see that, the compliance is met if they come.
Who works out what that assessment looks like? If someone owed 10,000, who do they come to negotiate or talk about what should it be? 2,000, 1,500? Who works that out?
Again.
Is that you?
That would be me with
Correct. So you're
consulting
responsible.
with.
So are you responsible for ensuring that the city gets the maximum amount of revenue that's possible, or trying to negotiate what you believe is possible for a developer who has already determined that they're going to do work without permits anyway? Is that correct? Is that correct?
I make a decision. It's not a decision on my own. I get the input from the subcode, whatever related subcode it is, and whatever related inspector it is, whatever discipline it is. We come up with a decision, and at that point, we feel we give a fair and just violation after the assessment
Is it
process.
fair and just based on the city's need? And I see the BA is getting up. Is it fair and just on the city's need? Or is it fair and just on what you believe the need is?
Yeah, I'm going to step in because it is turning into an intense cross-examination. I think the council is certainly entitled to question all the questions that you've asked. You're entitled to ask those questions. But there does come a point at which the individuals need not be attacked. I'm not saying anybody's doing an attack. I did not see what was going on behind me with the laughter, so I'm going to ask the council president later to let me know what that was about, and we'll address that. But I would like to ask that if the council could put together at this point your questions in writing.
Yes.
And we will respond to those questions. I will make sure that they are responded to. I think one of the principal areas of inquiry from Councilman Council is how do we determine what the fines are? What is this negotiation process? And even if the UCC is restricted by state law as to how much it can collect, what it does collect goes to the benefit of the city because, as Mr. Perdone said, those monies are supposed to go back to the department to run the department. As I think Councilman Council said clearly, the department is part of the city. Council, Corporate Council just said something I didn't quite follow, but he can address that himself if he likes. But I'm going to ask that the council put together follow-up questions. We will address those, and to the extent you want folks to come back, we will.
Mr. B, I agree. I was going to suggest that. I think we should all submit questions to the Madam Clerk, and she can provide a comprehensive list of all those questions. Because I think at the end of the day, we need to get more information. And I also would suggest that we invite them back to the next special conference once these questions are provided, and then we can have a full and maybe more robust conversation. Councilman Ramos first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say, Mr. BA, I think you sense kind of like the frustration.
Absolutely.
It's just not with UCC, but code enforcement. And this is based on things that we see in our respective wards throughout the city, feedback we get from residents and homeowners. You know, there's almost like a perception that there's a free-for-all when it comes to illegally converting properties, doing construction in evenings and on weekends. What happens once a violation is issued, you know, the mystery of what happens in Newark Municipal Court, why are some cases dismissed? I think these are all things that through your leadership, hopefully we can get a better understanding of how the process flows. And some years ago, I made a suggestion that maybe you need to create some kind of portal or ticketing system so that we can see in real time, like what happens once a violation is issued. You know, a lot of times our response to a resident or homeowner is, look, you know, I've been told a few times, especially in the historic district where we do have violators that consistently convert properties illegally, that they would be required to revert back to the original state of that property. And I could drive by 3 or 4 different addresses years later, and that never happened. So those are things that I really believe through, again, your leadership, you know, the administration needs to get a better handle, not just on the UCC side, but also code enforcement, just so that we better understand in terms of what happens. And this shouldn't be arbitrary, meaning like, you know, it's dangerous when you have the ability to waive fines and summonses and fees connected to construction. And it creates a sense of unfairness. Like, why should I pay and Ms. Roundtree doesn't pay? You know, so there should be a concrete reason why certain fees associated with UCC may be waived.
So let's do this in the interest of time, because we've been here for a
President.
while, and a lot of council members have already spoken. I agree with your suggestion, Mr. BA, that we should provide you questions in writing. Council members, let's all submit questions to Madam Clerk. Let's CC all of us on those questions so we're all aware of those questions so that we don't duplicate. And let's submit that as soon as possible. Additionally, I believe we need to have or invite everyone to come back at the next special meeting to fully discuss this matter, give us time to digest what you receive, and then provide a robust and full dialogue. I love that word. Excuse me for laughing too.
That's what, Council President.
Go ahead,
Yes,
and
when
then
we
we're going to
do-
wrap this up.
That's fine. When we do come back, I'm going to see if we can invite someone from DCA as well, because I think that would be important. They do have some oversight over UCC, and perhaps if they will come and avail themselves to this intense and cross-examination, we'll get a little more information as to what restrictions UCC has. I do want to say too that Mr. Perdón actually, in my view, has done a very good job in trying to rein things in. We still have not been able to get Tony Nagpal out of the system with the state as the construction official. We've been working on that for over a year. I'm not fully clear as to why that hasn't happened yet, but I'm told that it's in the state's hands as to why it's not there, and that will give Mr. Perdón more of an opportunity to control the system. And that may not be what some folks want. That is what I want at this point. He has stepped up when we needed somebody to step up. With respect to oversight, I'll work with the engineering director to make sure that there is appropriate oversight. With respect to your question about having a portal that's available so that you can see what's going on the appointment side, where the inspectors and subcode officials are making appointments, that portal is close to being available for you to see. On the, I guess on the side where you're talking about following up on compliance, that is not as far along as I'd like it to be, but we can focus on that as well. And hopefully some of those things we can address when they come back as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. BA. At this point, I think we're done with this discussion. We're finished with the discussion. So let's go into motion for executive session.
Thank you.
Yes.
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 Yes. And it's a quick